Hi, everyone. So excited to have you here tonight. Thank you for joining us for how to get into a UC school. We have an absolutely stacked panel that we're going to learn from tonight. Let's give it about a minute, let people trickle in. While we are waiting, go ahead and sign up for our free college application bootcamp. This is like it's a course that you can go through with a group of other applicants, with top coaches from Leland walking you through every part of the application, from essays to letters of recommendation, activities, awards. It covers everything that you need to get through this process. We know it's scary and it's daunting, and there's a lot of things that go into it. But we will really walk you through every single part. So would recommend signing up for that. We just dropped the link in the chat. You can also go to bit.ly/applycollege or scan that QR code. A lot of different entry points into it. Thanks again for being here. Let's get started. This is UC Admissions 101, expert tips and strategies for success. The UC application is a little bit different. If you're applying, you've probably seen we have the Common App. We have there are some other school specific applications. UC is one of the biggest college programs that doesn't use the Common App. And we'll go through everything that you need to know in order to get started on it tonight. Sign up for Leland if you haven't done so already. It's how you'll get invites to future events like this. It's also how you'll get access to the recording and other offers related to coaching and events and content and all of the things. We'll drop the link in there too, but you should definitely have a free account on Leland if you haven't done so already. Quick logistics. We'll go through a bunch of different questions. We'll try to answer as many as we can. If you have a question that we don't cover, feel free to drop it in the chat. We'll try to get to them as many as we can there. Stay on until the end for some exclusive discounts. We got some exciting announcements at the end. And then if you haven't done so already, again, sign up for Leland to access the recording. We always get questions. So if you want the recording, make sure you have a free account. Let's do some quick welcome and introductions. Then we'll do a brief overview of the UC application. Then we'll get into the meat of this session, which is our expert panel, and then we'll wrap up. So quick introductions. My name is Amelia. I run all content here at Leland. It's my job to help you get access to the information that you need to reach your goals. So if there's anything that I personally can do to help you navigate the college application process or any other process for that matter, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You'll also see Erica and Amanda in the chat. Shout out to them. They are responsible for hosting these events. We couldn't do any of this without them. They're amazing. So give them a little hi or wave if you see them. Let me introduce you to the real stars of the show, though, who you came here to see, our incredible panelists. Coaches, I would love for you to introduce yourselves. Christian, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everybody. My name is Christian Hansen. I'm a former admissions team member at BYU and also a former associate director of the MBA program down at UC Irvine. I am also the #1 best-selling author of the LinkedIn top 10 ranked book, The Influence Mindset, The Art and Science of Getting People to Choose You. And I'm a full-time education consultant, and I can't wait to be here tonight and learn from these other fantastic panelists.
Thank you, Christian. Avi here. I was a junior admissions officer at Berkeley, where I graduated from. And I've been consulting and helping applicants get into the UC schools, among other schools, for about 20 years now. I guess I would call myself somewhat of a specialist at UC school just because I've worked in admissions there. And I lived in California most of my life, so excited for the panel.
Hi, I'm Joe Slater. I am a consultant for students getting into college as well. I come to this world through a little bit of a different path, which was athletics. I played baseball in college, and then I coached Division I for several years before switching over and getting into administration, also at UC Berkeley, which is where I kind of found admissions, working in the athletic department, in fundraising and operations, a couple of different areas. Started working with the athletes going through the admissions process and really enjoyed it. So went through Berkeley's graduate program on college advising and have been working with students ever since.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Wirtz. I am a professional admissions coach. I came into college admissions coaching through my own work in admissions. I was a director of admissions for 2 different institutions. And worked across graduate programs as well as undergraduate programs. I also am a full-time education policy advisor. So this is something that I do in addition to my full-time job, but it's definitely what I like to refer to as my passion work, because I really, really enjoy getting to help individuals craft their own stories and be able to put their best foot forward with applications. So looking forward to learning tonight from the other panelists. This is always a great opportunity for us as coaches to learn as well, but also to get to know your questions and hopefully be a helpful guide to you as you are looking at your UC applications.
Amazing. Thank you, coaches. So much experience and expertise here across the UC system and college applications in general. Really excited to learn from all of you tonight and to share your knowledge with all of these attendees. You know us now. We would love to get to know you a little bit. So if you want to drop in the chat, where are you dialing in from? What year are you? And then what is your dream UC school? This will help us tailor questions, but also we would love to get to know you. So drop them in the chat. Don't be shy. I'm going to sit here in awkward silence until I get at least one response. We do have some LA representation on the team, actually. Yeah, go Bruins. If we've got any parents here, feel free to ask for your child too. Come on, guys. Kaysville, Utah, and Berkeley. Okay. We've got healthy Berkeley representation from our coaches, so love to see that. Carlsbad, California. Okay. Keep them coming. USC. Okay. Other California school, but a lot will be helpful for that as well. San Diego, UCLA, music business. Love that. Keep it coming. We would love to see that. UCI. Thanks for the UCI representation, Christian. Okay, awesome. Keep them coming. If this is your first Leland event, we want to tell you a little bit about us and why you're here. So we're building the one-stop shop to help you reach whatever your goal may be. Get into schools, reach your career path, up-level yourself, ace a test, whatever your goal is. We have one-on-one coaches who you can work with to help you reach that goal. We have over 750 coaches, experts, just like these amazing panelists, who you can work with and provide custom tailored help that's really personalized to your background and your goals. We also host a ton of free community events just like this. Again, make sure you're signed up if you want access to them. We love hosting these. We love helping you get into your dream schools and your dream career paths. And then we also do live cohort-based courses, which is that college application boot camp, as well as many others. So if you would like help navigating any of these, drop us a note. We're happy to help you, but we're excited to be on this event with you tonight. I think my personal favorite part about working at Leland is just seeing that this is working, and all of these coaches can attest to this as well. Every single day we are seeing people that come through Leland and are getting into the most competitive schools and career paths in the world. And once you work on Leland, you have an entire team that is on your side. We're cheering for you. We're rooting for you. We genuinely want to help you succeed. So thank you for being here and for giving us a chance to do just that. One more plug for the college application bootcamp. It really, like, if there's one thing that I can recommend that you do to get started on this college application journey, it's that you're going to learn so much. You'll be able to get your foot in the door. It's 4 sessions about everything to do with the application process, and it's completely free. So there's no reason not to sign up for it. We'll drop the link in the chat if you missed that earlier, in bit.ly/applycollege. If you're new to coaching and are not sure how to work with a coach, any one of these panelists or the other 700 that we have on the platform, you can really find someone to help you with whatever you need help with. I think that's the beauty of coaching, of working with someone one-on-one. If you're getting ready to take the ACT, SAT, it's scary. It's so hard. I remember those days very clearly. We have tutors that can help you with the ACT, SAT, or application strategy, essays, additional activities, whatever it is that you need help with. We can find you someone to help you get there. Okay, enough about Leland. Let's go into the college application process and the UCs in particular. So we won't spend very long on this slide. Mostly just want to give you an idea of the portfolio of some of these schools and what you should be expecting in the application process. Tuition, there's an application fee per campus, which is something you want to pay attention to as you're considering, okay, what schools do I actually want to apply to? Deadlines, the actual deadline is December 2nd. I believe you can start submitting on October 1st. So we're almost there. It's getting time to think really seriously about this. And then there's a lot of great UC schools. We have coaches representing a lot of them tonight. Think about these acceptance rates as you're considering what schools you want to apply to. A common recommendation is to apply to safety, target, reach schools across the list. That's also the same for UCs. But a lot of awesome programs that we'll be touching on tonight. Feel free to take a screenshot of this. We'll also be sending out the recording if you've signed up. Quick application. So we'll cover different parts of this tonight. The essays, the personal insight questions, those I know are the scariest for a lot of people, especially because they are different than the Common App ones, and yeah, they're hefty. We know they're scary. There's an additional comment section. There's activities and awards. There's transcripts and your personal information scholarships. Uniquely to, we'll get into this a little bit, but the UC system is test blind. So they will not be considering your test scores when you're admitting, and then letters of recommendation are also not required upon application. Again, feel free to take a screenshot. We'll cover a lot of this tonight. Would love to hear from you guys. What part of the application process seems the most daunting? And this can be for the UC system. It can be for the college application in general. Again, if you're a parent, you can talk about what your student, what your daughter or son is most scared about. What is the scariest part of the application process for you right now? Keep dropping those. But let's get into some questions and start addressing essays. Yes, we always get essays, and I know essays were the hardest for me as well. I think it's so hard to like summarize who you are as a person in 800 words or whatever. So we feel that essays, yep. We'll talk a lot about essays tonight. Okay, coaches, let's move into these panels and start addressing some of these questions. I'm going to start off with a little bit more of a general one that I would love all of you to answer. Starting off kind of high level, what is your top tip for helping these individuals get into their dream UC program? What is the one thing that they should kind of walk away from? Amanda, I would love to start with you.
Yeah, I think my biggest tip is do your research. So one of the things that is really important to think about with the UCs is that each UC has its own unique culture, the thing that it brings to the table, much like your research with other colleges, each UC has its own kind of unique spin and twist. All that to say, if you're interested in engineering, UC Berkeley is not the only UC with a very heavy engineering focus, right? If you're interested in biomedical engineering, for example, UC Irvine might be a better fit for you because it's the hub of biomedical engineering. So really do your research, not just about the school itself, but if you have like a really specific goal in mind or very specific interest in a particular field of study, looking at the areas around the UC to see what kinds of industries is that particular UC going to be tapping into as a student, right? Because the goal is not to graduate, it's to be able to have the skills you need to be able to get a job, right? And so if you can be in a community that fosters internships and different research experiences that you're going to have as a student, your experience is going to be so much better. And then your essays can really focus on those particular elements that are going to make you look like the right fit for that particular school, right? So really, really doing your research and not just going to UC Berkeley because it's got a great brand, or not going to UCLA because you really like the beach, right? The more specific you can be in terms of why a particular school is the right fit from the onset, even if there's no prompt that says, why is this school the right fit for you? You're going to be able to articulate that better through your experiences and your examples, so that you can make sure that you are aligned with the right school. So you're not going in and saying, I'll just apply to all of them, which sometimes can be the temptation.
Yeah, I love that, Amanda. I see Christian shaking his head in agreement too. And we can get more into this because I totally agree. It's so important. Christian, what's your top tip?
Yeah, my top tip is to be clear about why you're hiring in any institution, right? You're paying them, they work for you ultimately. And so what is the vision that you want to accomplish with them, right? Really big thing is that a lot of times students come in and they're just like, I just want to have a great experience and I want to contribute to the campus and have a great time. And that's fine. But you got to understand that colleges see themselves as bridges. They are there, they want you to get in, but they want you to move on to something. And so when you're able to articulate, this is why I'm hiring this school, in your essays especially, that shows that you see them as a tool to get somewhere. And when everybody else is using college to figure out what they want in life, you're going to stand out when you show how you're using college to build the life that you want. It's just one of those little things that can really make you stand out from everybody else.
Yeah, coaches, I love both of those, especially because I think when you're in the process, it's so scary. It's like, I'm just going to get into school. All I need is to get into school. But if you zoom out, it's like, no, you're getting into school for a specific purpose, which is what comes after school. And so zooming out can actually help you with that process. Joe, what is your top tip?
For me, with the UCs especially, a lot of times it's just, understanding what the landscape looks like and what makes somebody competitive, at these schools that are asking for a very specific thing. Like has been mentioned before, the UCs have a very specific mission, to benefit the state of California and its citizens. And, they're very practical when it comes to the kinds of students that are coming in, for especially for the most competitive majors and programs, and knowing, that what they're looking for, for something like engineering, and then, respecting the competition that's out there amongst other students and how impressive, not only your classmates are, but students around the state and around the world. And knowing that to be competitive for a lot of these programs, you really have to push yourself in high school, and you really have to, maximize the, the classes that you take and the activities that you do, and to be intentional, with a direction in mind, towards what you're going to try to study at the UCs.
That's great. A lot of jumping off points from there. Avi, bring us home. What's your top tip?
Top tip. So, you're applying to the UCs, and there's some fundamental differences between the UC application and the other applications that you'll fill out. One of them, Amelia touched on a little bit, is it's test blind. It's also no letters of recommendation, with one exception. So if you apply to Berkeley, they might request a letter of recommendation for certain applicants in January. So expect that. Sorry, somebody just turned on an extra light. If you can't see me well, I apologize. If you apply to certain majors in the arts, that might trigger a supplemental application that you might have to fill out for UC school. So there's fundamental differences, subtle differences. So whatever they take with one hand, you don't have to take the SATs, you don't have to submit letters of recommendation, but they'll add with the other hand. Like I said, there's certain supplemental stuff that you might have to fill out. One last thing. The activities list for the UC school is longer than any other application. There's 20 activities that you can fill out with subcategories of honors, activities, distinction, stuff like that. So what that tells you is that for the UC schools, your activities are extra important, again, because there is no SAT evaluation, because there's no letters of recommendation. So activities need to be very refined and pointed in the way you describe them.
Thanks, coaches. That was such a great start, both from like a high level and what differentiates UC from the Common App and other college applications. We'll dig into a lot of these. I want to start off with the UCs. So there's a lot of UCs. You have to pay per application. So how do you help your clients decide which of the UC schools to apply to? Amanda, you talked about research, and I think that plays a big component here. Do you want to expound on that a bit?
Yeah, let me give you a particular example. So I had a student that was applying to the UCs and was specifically interested in UCSD. So this is a really great example of really having to do your research. Because if you're interested in UCSD, you need to actually apply to one of the colleges, because they function much like a liberal arts consortium of sorts. So there's the individual schools and colleges that you're applying to. And so you actually have essays. There are supplemental essays that you have to respond to for those particular schools. So you really have to decide from the get-go what your specific area of interest is, and what you are interested in focusing on. So that's very, very unique from like a UCLA or UCR or UCSB, where it's much more general in terms of how your application will go. But yeah, I think really important, and I think it was wonderful that Avi spoke to this as well. Being able to figure out what your core focus is going to be, and really molding your activities lists and your essays to show how you have had, gone down the rabbit hole in your particular areas of interest. Have you done research in this particular area? What kinds of classes have you taken, or activities you've gotten involved with outside of the classroom that shows that you are prepared for that particular UC? I think looking at previous years' applicants is really, really helpful, because the more competitive the UC, the more I think crafted the type of person that they're looking for is. It's easier to find what that mold looks like, and being able to make sure that you are molding your application to fit that particular profile, and making sure that you are doing everything across your application to show that.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you for calling out, Avi, because I'm actually going to go to you for this question as well. Particularly, like, what if I don't totally know what I want to do in college? Like, I have an idea, I like STEM maybe, but I don't know really what I want to do. How can I then narrow down the list of schools so I'm not applying to every single UC because I want to stay in state? What would be your advice?
Well, one thing is that's so common, right? I mean, what 17-year-old has decided definitively what they want to do and how that might translate into a future career? Not many. They have a rough idea based on their interests. What the UC system has done to help you formulate that in some rough way is the personal insight question. So what you can do is you can leverage those 4 personal insight questions to demonstrate to them how you have scaffolded your interests in a way that points to something resembling a interest, a passion, a potential future career. So I'll give you an example. With clients, what I usually do is first thing is, well, which prompt should I choose? Okay. Well, you want to select prompts that demonstrate different facets of your character and your development and your interest, etc. However, at the same time, you want them to sort of scaffold in some way. Let's say you're I had a client that was a computer science person. So we used one of the essays to talk about how they innovate and they're creative in their computer science and coding. And then the contribution essay, we said, okay, why don't we use the contribution essay to talk about how you've used coding and your computer science abilities to enhance contribution to your community in some ways. And, he did volunteering and he was tutoring kids and all that. So it demonstrated some sort of theme and rhythm to what he did in his, in his high school career. How does that help them decide? Well, then that points them to, well, okay, then such and such school would be good, based on the narrative of my essays or what it points to. So it helps to formulate for them maybe some idea of what they're interested in and how that lines up with, a school's offerings and strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, that's great. I love the idea of using the application itself to kind of figure out directionally where you want to go and what schools might be the right fit. The other thing I would say is go on platforms like LinkedIn, and you can see what the alumni of the programs that you're interested in have done. Go and actually look at UCLA alumni who have studied computer science. What are they doing with their careers? Then you'll have like real anecdotes to speak to and can see people that have gone to these schools and then gone on to similar interests that you are. You can also talk to them, like reach out to them and say, hey, I'd love to learn about your experience at UCLA in computer science. Do you have 15 minutes? Also, like if your parents are alumni or you have family members that are alumni or your parents' friends are alumni, talk to as many people as you can to kind of understand what the culture and the experience was like at these different schools. Okay, this one dovetails, I think, really well from that last one. So because the application covers all of the UCs, how can I target the ones that I'm the most interested in? Amanda, you started talking about this. With the personal insight questions, I know I want to get into UC Berkeley. How can I show UC Berkeley that I want to go when I'm sending this application to all of the UCs? Joe, would love your thoughts here.
Yeah, it's kind of that's kind of the tricky one for the UCs. Generally, if you have done some of the research that the panelists have talked about, where you're applying to a program at 3 UCs in a specific type of engineering that might only be offered at those 3s, and that's the reason why those 3 are the ones that you want to apply to. That can be a good one, like talk specifically about the program that you're interested in, and the UC that has that program will say, well, they must be very interested in me because we have that program. If it's a little bit more broad, then it can be just kind of allusions to visits that you've done or to experiences that you've had that line up particularly with one or multiple of the schools, to just try to give that indication without completely naming a specific school and putting yourself behind with any of the other ones.
How important is, so outside of like specific majors or stuff that these schools are offering, how important is it to match up like culture? Like this is the environment that I want to be in. Is that something that you would consider when thinking about these essays?
I mean, I think, just in back to the last question that you were talking about as well, these schools, they're so different from one to the next. And they're all one system, but, Merced and Berkeley and San Diego couldn't be, farther apart from each other, and just kind of like a lifestyle and a culture and a feel. And visiting campuses is one of the most important things that you can possibly do. And I know some people are farther away, but there's tools online now, and they'll really tell you what they're good at. But really stepping foot on campus and and getting a sense of how each one of them is different and why each one of those speaks to you. Like size and urban versus rural and suburban and close, weather and all these different things are just so different, that the more information that you can collect before the application comes around, the better you can speak to each individual campus and to the campuses, to the UC as a whole.
Yeah, I love that. The more research that you've done beforehand, the better you will know what the school is looking for and how to speak to them. Christian, as a former AdCom at a UC school, would love your perspective on what do you think the UC schools are looking for? We've touched on this a little bit, but what is unique to the UC AdComs? What are they looking for at applicants?
To what Joe just said, a big part of this is they're trying to envision what is the contribution you're going to be making on campus, right? So that's a big part. And so how can you show in your essays, for example, the kind of impact you want to make? So one time I was working with a student who did get accepted to UCLA, and he was really into robotics and, computer engineering. And so he was really explicit about, here's what I've done to use computer engineering to make a difference in my current life, in my community, at my school. And then he was also very clear, and here are the specific things that I want to do when I come to your campus. Now, he was just targeting UCLA, so he had the luxury of making it a very UCLA-centric thing, but he did get very specific. So, the UCs are known for their diversity. They're wanting to create a great student experience. They're not necessarily looking for a well-rounded applicant, right? The real goal is creating specialized applicants who are contributing to a well-rounded class. So that's an important thing, to try and just be very, specific. Like, hey, when I get on campus, I look forward to getting involved in these kinds of clubs, or I look involved in getting in these kinds of things. That kind of specificity, it goes a long way, because look, everybody else that you're being compared to, they have the grades, they can hack it. But being able to communicate the vision you have for what you're trying to accomplish and how you're trying to contribute to make it specifically a great campus environment for other people, and what you're going to contribute and bring to the table, that's really valuable for them.
Christian, that's so, I want to highlight what you just said, and reiterate, because I think it's so important. These schools, the UCs get the most applications of any, right? I think UCLA alone got over 100,000 or something last year. How do you choose a student body out of that number of applicants? And I think it's two things. It's first, it's exactly what you just said. Can I admit students that are going to make this school a better place? That is so important. And is the persona that I'm presenting one that shows that I will contribute, I will bring something to this campus? And then I think the other thing is, as you mentioned, schools are brands. And so they want people who are going to be successful. They are going to do something after school that will then reflect well on that program. Because once you go through a UC school, you are a UC alumni, and everything that you do is then reflected on UC. So will you contribute something? Will you bring something unique to that program? And then will you reflect on that brand well later? Avi, as a former UC Berkeley admissions officer, I would love your take on this as well, of what the UC schools are evaluating, how the application process is different.
Yeah, well, they tell you. So you can literally go on their website and they tell you what they're looking for in essays. It's called their comprehensive review, and they'll tell you what factors they consider in evaluating application. Now, what's interesting, if you pay close attention to it, there's like, I don't know, 10 or 12 bullet points on what they're looking for. And if you read it carefully, almost all of them, certainly the first 10, are academic related. Okay, so does that mean that they're only interested in grades? No, but that's a big deal for them. In fact, they talk about their minimum requirements. Amelia had it on the first slide, okay, GPA requirements. What it does mean is you want to make a centerpiece of your application the aspects and dimension of your academic interests and how they've expanded not only in the classroom, but outside the classroom, whether you were the president of the math club, or like Christian talked about, you know, you did something related to robotics off campus, but in some way, you know, because you're a future CS major, engineering person. So notice when you read the factors that they are telling you in advance that they're evaluating, they're largely academically driven, okay? But again, that doesn't mean grades, although they do make an emphasis of that. It means, how have you demonstrated your interest in academic fields beyond the classroom, okay? And like Christian said, that will be obviously a way to translate how you intend to make an academic contribution and a social contribution in some of the clubs, you know, on campus. The question, what are the UCs evaluating? How is it different? That is different, you know, than most of the campuses. Okay, if you look at their, you could just Google it. It's comprehensive review. It's on their PIQ section, you know, their personal insight question section. I'm predicting, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before many times, but I'm predicting that, so I'll put it on the record, that the UC schools will revamp their the way that they their personal insight questions. I don't think it's very effective. I never have thought it's very effective. I think it's going to be more directed to specific schools rather than here's just 8 questions, answer the you know 4 of them, and we'll apply to all the schools. I've never liked it. I think it'll change. Could be wrong. I've been wrong before.
You heard it here first. That's great, Avi. Thank you for that perspective.
Yeah, can I just add one thing here?
Please do. Please
If you
do.
are an out-of-state student, please check to make sure that you fit the A through G requirements, because in addition, a part of that academic element is the A through G requirement. If you have not completed the A through G requirement, you may be requested, like they may request your test score. So that is the one exception to the test blind policy, is if you haven't completed, because it's an in-state school. Most California schools require that all students go through the A through G requirements to graduate from high school. So it's kind of baked in if you're a student in California. But if you are outside the state of California, just make sure that you meet those very specific requirements, because that's something else that they're very, very particular on in terms of the academic prerequisite.
Thank you for calling that out, Amanda. So important. We had it on the first slide, but I forgot to mention it. So yes, look up A through G requirements for the UC programs. Okay, personal insight questions, which we now know Avi does not like. I think it's a very unique benefit of the UC applications that you get to choose the essays that you apply to. There's a lot of strategy, which we'll get into, in which ones you do end up writing, and how they can complement each other, as Avi touched on earlier. These are online. Feel free to take a screenshot here if you would like. You'll also be able to see them on the recording. Let's go into, okay, these are the prompts. I have to choose 4. There are 8. How do I choose which ones to respond to? Joe, I'm gonna posit this to you first.
Okay, you might get 4 different styles and responses from all of us on this. I have, and it's changed for me over the years as well, but I tend to, with the UCs, be a little bit less married to the prompts, and a little bit more, just kind of like, tell me what you want the UCs to know about you. Let's get that on paper, and then we'll find the prompts that kind of slides into, a little bit more than, like supplemental essays to, schools on the Common App where they're saying, why are you interested in Duke? It's like they want to know why you're interested in Duke. The UCs want to know about you. And these are kind of guides. And as Avi said, they're not exactly the greatest guides in the world to, get to know all this, the students from around the world who are trying to apply to these completely different schools. So really just, come up, what are your values? What do you care about? And then how can you get that across to the UCs, and then go from there and figure out, which prompts those can slot into.
I love that approach of thinking about the story that you want to tell and then working the prompts into that. This one I think is so important because it is a major part of this application, is choosing which prompts to apply to. So I'm going to open it up to you, coaches. Anyone agree with that? Anyone disagree with that approach? We got some thumbs up. Amanda's nodding. Okay, awesome.
One way that I
You
make
nailed
that-
it, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta trust what Joe says. I think that's some really good advice. One angle that I help students just kind of think of it is, it doesn't matter what the questions are on any college application, much less the UC system. It's more important about, do you know what the stories are that you want to tell, right? What are the points? And let's consider, I look at essay questions the same way that I look at picture frames at an art store. By themselves, they look nice, but the thing is that they're there to really frame some sort of painting or picture. So first, be clear about what is the story that you're really excited to tell, that you want them to know. What are the key things? Then let's find the essay question that's going to act as the picture frame around your story. So that's another way to kind of think of it if it's a bit intimidating to approach.
Yeah, I love that. Christian, I know you have this worksheet that you do with clients too, where it's helpful to just do like a brain dump exercise. If you're just getting started, write down every activity you've been involved in, everything that you care about. Who are you? And bullet, like just get something on paper. It doesn't have to be pretty. Write down every part that kind of makes up who you are as a high school student and human in the world right now. And then you can get started from there. Okay, so you've chosen oh, go for it, Christian.
Along that line, there's kind of 3 criteria that I use to make sure that, a story, you may be wondering, I don't know what story I should tell. There's 3 things to kind of think about. And again, bringing out the whiteboard, people, this is a big deal. First is, where have you taken initiative? Okay, where you made effort and you got something started. The second thing is where you're genuinely interested. We do a lot of things we're not necessarily interested in, but sometimes there are things that we really do like. And then finally, the third I is, where have you had an impact? Okay, so if you're wondering what stories you should be focusing on, if you're able to say, I took initiative, I'm genuinely interested in it and I liked it, and I had an impact, that's a great candidate for a story to be featuring on the personal insight prompts. If it has, if you don't have one that has 3 of them, then look for stories that have maybe 2 or of these, right? So that's a way that you can kind of distinguish what stories you want to tell over others in case you're getting lost. So this is just a helpful thing: initiative, interest, and impact.
Yeah, I love that because it feeds so well into our earlier point that it shows like who you are going to be on UC's campus, right? If you've had initiative, if you've had an impact, if you're interested in things that, well, that's what you're going to be involved in when you've matriculated as a student. Okay, you've chosen your prompts because you've outlined your story and you know what you want to tell. How then can I start writing my story? How can I start writing the answers to those prompts? Amanda, would love your thoughts on this.
Yeah, one of the first things that we do after we go through the brainstorming, the brain dump, and then kind of going through that process of what's most important, what's most unique, and figuring those stories out. The very next step that I do with my clients is doing what I call the detailed outline. So instead of just thinking about the structure of your outline and how each idea, connects to the next, thinking about first your hook. How are you going to engage the reader? Generally, application review takes place in about 10 minutes. So you have a very short window of time to capture the attention of your reader. So you're not going to start in with a bland general statement or a random quote. You're going to bring them into your personal story as quickly as you possibly can to engage the reader. I think unique perspective is really helpful with that. Right? You can't, as a reader, you have no idea who the reader is, first of all. So you want to make sure that it's something that anybody universally can connect to and understand from the very get-go. And then the core message that you want to relay, what is that important characteristic or value or thing that's important that you want to be able to articulate to the reader and the application reviewer. And then the last part is the so what. So what are we supposed to take away from this particular experience? It shouldn't just end with, and then I won the trophy, right? It should be, because of this experience, then this, right? Because of this experience, then this is who I'm going to be as a student on this UC campus. Or because of this, I now have an interest in studying this particular area, and this is the direction I want to go with my career, right? Like everything should have that. So what the reader has a takeaway from the very get-go. So if the only thing they're reading is the very first part of your essay and the very last thing in your essay, they have a really clear picture of who you are, what you're all about, and what they should take away from your application.
That's great. I love the connector points between past, present, and future, because I think it presents this like really cohesive theme or narrative. And that makes it really easy for someone reading the application to understand. Like it's not you as a complete person, but it can help someone say, oh, this is what this person cares about because it's been in their past. It's what they're doing now, and it's what they're going to pursue in the future. I think that's a really great framework. Joe, do you have any other advice on how to approach the actual writing process?
Yeah, a couple of them. So I've gone to the UC Counselor Conference. I don't even know how many of them now. And the thing that they always get across is that these aren't essays. These are personal insight questions. These are structured more like an interview. They don't want, they want you to imagine that somebody asks you a question and that you're answering it in an interview setting. So you wouldn't start the answer to an interview with a quote from Franklin Delano Roosevelt, or, all right, imagine me in this world. They want you to use they are intentionally 350 words. They are short for a reason. They want you to get straight into it. They don't ding you for style or, not having story. They want dense information, and they want you to get it to them, in the most efficient way possible. The other thing, I would just say, when working with students, what happens with almost every one of these is after the first draft, it's 75% kind of like, intro story about what's happening, and then 15 to 20% as was said before, so what, right? And so every time, with almost every essay I've ever worked with, shrink the top part, expand the bottom part. And if you can do that as a student, as you're writing this, go through, write the first draft, and then just go, okay, cut down all that first stuff, and then tell me much more about what changed, what effect did it have on you, what it affected you have on other people, and so what.
I love that. We're seeing the applause from Christian in the back too.
That's
Yes.
gold. You guys just write that down. That was the best advice you're going to get the whole night. I mean, well, I think so, but that was great, Joe. Thank you.
It totally is. A lot of the essays that I read that are first drafts are totally like when I was walking through the woods and I had this thought and blah. So it totally is right that focus on the impact, focus on the so what. Yeah, totally. That's such great advice, Joe. Avi, I would love for you to talk through this one because, as you mentioned, the activity section of the UC application is very unique and a bit overwhelming, I think, if you're just looking at it. So I might break this down into two questions and have you answer either one. How do I choose the activities and the awards and all of the things that I've been involved in? And then how can I make those stand out?
Okay. So activities and awards lists should be driven, less by the activity and the award and more by the motivation and contribution. So what motivated me to be involved in the activity? How did I contribute to the activity? And what motivated me to participate in this particular thing that led to an award? So if the emphasis is on the award itself, although when you do list the awards, you want to try to quantify selectivity, awarded, 3 out of 100 were awarded for blah, blah, blah. So you definitely want to denote the selectivity of the award. But the activities in the awards require as much of a deep dive as the essays, in my view. So what motivated me, like I said, to participate in the activity, and why did I want to participate in this thing that was competitive in some way, or provided some sort of distinction, and it's not always active, right? Some people are just given awards for academic achievement or whatever, but motivation and contribution less than the achievement itself is the name of the game with those. Stand out, how to do it. I mean, I work with, guides and brainstorm templates and things like that that help to stimulate activity in terms of thinking about these things. But most people don't think about the activities they're involved in. With a lot of people, it's just driven by, I want to beef up my college application, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a practical consideration. But obviously you can't list that as a reason why you were involved in it. So it's just a little bit of a deeper dive in asking the applicant why, what motivated it. And if you can sort of convey part of that in the activities list, that goes a long way in distinguishing you from people who are just going to list the achievement itself.
Yeah. What if, I think a common place to be at is, I don't feel that accomplished. Like you said, I'm a 17-year-old, and a lot of the activities that I probably have been involved in are because I want to get into a good school. If that's the case, how can I add that extra zhuzh, make sure that I'm showing that I'm going to be a capable and involved student on campus?
Well, that's, these are activities and involvement that don't occur to people that are actually qualify as activities or involvement. It could be family related. It could be something non-traditional, like it could be even work, that people did, just as a part-time job, but it was in some way meaningful to them. But it could be very non-traditional stuff. Activity could be something like stopping by at a boxing gym and deciding to, clean up the floors because a friend of yours works there and he's a boxer and you wanted to sort of help out because he had a match coming up. And it wasn't formal. It was very informal, but in some way it was meaningful to you, whether you developed relationships or it inspired you to start boxing. So, if somebody doesn't have formal, positions in a club or anything like that, there's always something that people have done as a human being and as a high school student that is in some way meaningful to them. So again, if you're focused on the meaningful aspect of it and you can stimulate a conversation with somebody, things come out, they eventually come out.
That's so great. I also think this is something where coach can be so hugely beneficial. Is sometimes we get so involved in our own activities in our own lives that it's hard to take a step back and kind of evaluate it from the perspective of an AdCom or even just a third-party perspective. So highly recommend working with a coach and saying, these are the things that I've been involved in. And a coach can kind of work as a therapist, almost to say, okay, why did that matter to you? What was the impact that it had? How did it change your perspective? Or in what way did it make an impact on your life? So highly recommend working with a coach for this aspect. Anyone else have anything to add on the activities section? Want to just open it up?
I would just say, because you have such limited character space, and it's more so than on the Common App, so they do give you more space. I really like that about the UC application. In addition to making sure you're talking about impact, and both impact on you as well as those that maybe were in your circle of influence in this particular activity, is to not state the obvious. So if you were a secretary for an organization, for example, don't put that you took minutes for a meeting. You are wasting space. Like, this is a very tactical tip, but anything that is obvious from the name of the activity that you did, or so for example, if it was soccer, don't talk about the fact that you went to tournaments. That's an obvious thing. Don't waste that space. So really think about why it was important, what skills you developed. So one of the reasons why students don't get into schools is because they don't do enough on the soft sell. And I know Christian speaks to this a lot too. But if you don't do the soft sell, you're not going to get in. You're not going to be able to help yourself stand out from everybody else. So the soft sell incorporates the skills that you developed, both the technical and intangible skills that you developed. So it's not just that you were tutoring, it was that you were enhancing the educational experience of students from the 3rd to 5th grade by doing X, Y, and Z, right? So it's a great way to level up some of your descriptions to showcase how you've really had an impact, but you do it in a way where you're not stating the obvious, right? You're not just listing your to-do list on that particular activity. You really want to make it a little bit more powerful. And yes, coaching can really, really help in this regard, because you have coaches who know the language and know how to kind of shape and form your activities in a way that helps them to stand out.
Thanks, Amanda.
And
I
then,
love that dual-sided. Oh, go for it, Joe. Finish.
oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, the biggest thing for me is depth over breadth of activity. Like, you know, the top ones that you've spent a lot of time doing are going to be so much more important and impactful than, you know, just checking a ton of boxes off in a million different clubs. It's much better to be in one club for 3 years and move up, get into leadership positions, than it is to be in, you know, 10 clubs and just, you know, go to a meeting once a month. The other thing, like it reminded me a little bit because I was looking in the chat, you know, about somebody who's doing a fundraiser for a children's hospital, and you know, should that be an extracurricular? Like, yes, absolutely. You know, like everything, you know, and when I think about the activities list, I think of it as like the activities that you're doing to tell them about all these, you know, good things, but also they want to know how you spend your time, like reading, lifting weights. You know, are you sitting at home watching YouTube, or are you, you know, working? Are you, you know, going on hikes? Like if you're doing stuff that's out there, you know, in the world, and, you know, tell the UCs about it. They always say that the UC application is additive. Like nothing, you're not getting negative points for anything, you know? So if you think, you know, I did this fundraiser, should this go here? Like, if you got the room, put it in. You know, they're not going to take points away from you because you put something in that they're like, oh, well, that's not really an activity. Just put it in. The only thing that I would warn against is don't double count hours or things like that. If you're counting, you know, like that, the fundraiser for the hospital, but you also have, you know, NHS volunteering, and you don't count all those hours you spent doing NHS and then all the hours over here, like just make sure that you're only, you know, trying to get credit for one thing in one time. But other than that, there's pretty much nothing that's going to really take points away. Just go for it.
I love that. Hopefully, too, if we have any students that are earlier on in high school, freshmen or sophomores, hopefully this is helpful as you think about what activities you want to get involved in, too. I love that point about depth. What are you genuinely excited about being involved in? What can you commit to for the next couple of years? What can you grow and truly invest in? Such good tips, coaches. Okay, I think this is a really, really common struggle of high school students, and we've spoken to flavors of it, but I felt this way when I was applying. I went to a pretty typical high school. I got good grades and I had a good test score, but I was in DECA and NHS and I played a sport. A lot of those things are very similar candidate portfolios to what else you're going to see. So would love your advice, coaches. If I feel generic or represented and I don't really know what makes me special, how can I find that spice to add to my application? Avi, you wanna start us off here?
Yeah, this is going to sound self-serving, but the best way to do that is to work with a consultant, somebody who's objective, somebody who can, you know, it's easier to see things in others sometimes than it is to see in yourself. And so a good consultant who is sincere and diligent and committed to your success will be able to pull out certain aspects of your candidacy that might be hidden from view. So that's my advice. If you are not in a position where you can hire a consultant, I would urge you to look at that question. If my application/candidacy feels generic or overrepresented, what can I do to stand out? Believe in some way that you do stand out. That's a good start because you do. Okay. It's just how. So a consultant can help with that. Discussions with people who know you can kind of suss that out. But the first step, in my view, is believe that you do stand out. Now the investigation becomes how, not whether you do, but how. And again, a consultant, a good one, a sincere one, a committed one, can be instrumental with that. Family, teachers, you know, a deep dive into what, you know, resources the internet offers can also be helpful with that.
I love that. It's so discouraging. I think this application process, when you someone's just going to be evaluating every aspect of my life. But if you are on this call and you are a student, know that you are special and you deserve to go to these schools. It's whether these schools deserve to have you on campus, and you are special in some ways. I would love anyone else's thoughts on this. I think it is such a common struggle, Christian. I know you've spoken to this before. What are your thoughts?
Again, one of the biggest things to look for is, and I mentioned this, is when have you taken initiative, right? And I mentioned this frequently in other presentations, but there's 4 ways that people engage with things, right? You have someone who's a participant, someone who's a contributor, someone who's a leader, and then someone who takes initiative. And when about 50% of people are participants, right? They showed up, they had a pulse, right? And then contributors are people, they got their elbow grease going. That's about 30% of applicants in my experience. Leaders, about 15%, but the top 5% of people are people who take initiative. They see something and they go and they attempt to do something about it. It doesn't have to be big or small. It can be either big or small. And you're like, well, I haven't, I don't know, cured AIDS or solved nuclear fusion in a trash can in my backyard. That doesn't matter. It matters, okay, where have you seen a problem and then taken initiative to go and make a difference in some way and to leave an impact. If you can show that, that's one of the simple ways that you can truly stand out in a very crowded, competitive space.
Yeah, that I love that, Christian. One other thing that I'll add, and then we'll move on because we're getting close to the end here. Even if you've done the same things as everyone else, how you have done them is different. So maybe you've done a sports team or you were in NHS or something. What did you learn? How has it impacted you? What specifically did you do in that organization? And there's flavors of initiative and all of these things that people have talked about here. But just because you did the same thing as everyone else doesn't mean that you did it in the same way or that your perspective was the same or that it changed you in the same way. So I think a lot of times it just takes a little bit of digging deeper. When I've worked with clients, they've been like, oh, I did this. And I'm like, oh, well, why did you do that? And then the reason is really interesting. And, oh, how did it change your perspective on something? Oh, and then that's really interesting. So keep asking like why and how and go a little bit deeper, and you'll start to uncover some of the things that are more unique to you, even if on the surface they seem similar to other people.
Amelia, can I just use a really specific example of what you just
Please do, Amanda.
The client. So one of the brain dump exercises I do is called 21 random details about myself. And so one of my clients who was interested in pediatric nursing listed that she had this deep-seated fear of eating the middle of a hamburger, that she would only eat the perimeter of a hamburger. It was just this random fear that she had. And this speaks also to Avi's point, working with a coach can be really helpful, because I was like, oh, this is the perfect analogy for how you're going to be a fantastic pediatric nurse, because kids have random fears of food as well. And so because of this perspective that you have gained from your own weird, quirky thing about not eating in the middle of hamburgers, you have actually had experiences with other children where you've been able to bond with them and have a deeper understanding of the root cause of the things that they're experiencing instead of just treating the symptoms. And so we created this whole analogy in her essay. It seems like it's not an earth-shattering thing. She didn't discover some major thing through her own personal research in pediatric nursing. She didn't take any initiative in that sense, but she developed her own unique perspective, and it became a really outstanding, non-generic kind of an essay and an attention grabber. She got into every single school she applied to because she had developed this perspective, this unique perspective. So I think you're absolutely right. You cannot underplay the fact that perspective plays a major role in terms of how you can help yourself stand out in your essays.
And
I love that example.
I just thought Avi's point, that first believing that you deserve that you're different and believing that you can accomplish something, that I thought was a very elegant and beautifully stated point, and it's right in line. So you guys, that's a really important thing. I'm glad Avi mentioned that.
Feeling so inspired on this session, you guys. I wish I could go back and apply to college all over again. Okay, we're gonna end with a banger. Are there any additional tips that you have to people? And this can be a reiteration of something that you said. It could be something new. Just want to give each of you the space to leave each attendee with kind of a final word. Let's start at the bottom and work our way up. So Avi, you want to start us off?
Yeah, be quick. If you're going to apply to Berkeley, make sure you start cultivating relationships with people who you might potentially need to ask for letters of recommendation, because you might get a call or an email in January saying, hey, we need 2 letters from you. Be ready.
That's great. Joe.
Yeah, I think, kind of along the same lines, check your email, check the portals. The biggest mistakes, every year come from students that miss something, that they didn't get something in, that they missed an email, a letter of recommendation request, whatever it is, and it's too late at the end. And then the other thing is just, don't stress out about this, especially, the toughest things about the UCs a lot of times is that they come in last when the answers come back in late March. And just because, if Santa Cruz or Davis comes out and it's bad news, that doesn't mean that it's going to be bad, from everybody else along the line. And then also, because of all of this craziness that's gone on the past couple of years with FAFSA and other things, like the wait list has been very active at all the campuses over the past couple of years. So, join the wait list for the schools that you're interested in, and keep your head up. And there's so many opportunities out there for everybody.
It is not the end all be all. Yeah, for sure. Christian.
You guys, what an incredible time of your life right now. Doubt kills more dreams than failure ever does. And you are standing at the precipice of one of the most exciting, most transformative decades of your life. And you are about to see, college as a tool that you're going to use to go live life at a higher level and to go make a difference and to impact the world. Now, if the UCs work out, great. If they don't, right, then that's okay, because success is not about where you go to college. It's about why you're going to college. And abundance of opportunity never comes from scarcity of thought. Really believe in yourself. You have so much to offer. What is the impact you want to make on the world? And how can the UCs or any college you eventually attend be the tool that you're going to use to go live life at a higher level, to make a difference and serve and become a blessing to people around you? What an incredible opportunity. And I'm so excited for you guys. And I can only say best of luck, and you're going to do great.
I love that, Christian. Thank you. Amanda, bring us home.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wish you the best of luck in this whole process. The UC application is so incredibly unique to other applications. They do put a heavy emphasis on academic achievement, heavy emphasis on your writing, because that's really the way you can make the soft sell. There's no letters of recommendation to be able to do that. So really put a big focus on your writing of both your activities as well as your PIQs. I would also say start early. Don't do it at the last minute. This is not something that you can bring it in home at the very last minute for a couple reasons. You want your writing to be quality. Number one, you want, even if you don't work with a coach, to work with somebody else to review your writing before you submit it. Always have somebody else read it before you submit. And the other reason is there's always glitches in applications at the 11th hour. So the earlier you can submit your application, the better off you'll be, less stress on your plate. Also remember, UCs have a very high transfer rate, ridiculously high. It's in the 90s percentile or 90 percentage rate. So if you get into a UC and you're like, I'm not really happy at UC Merced, I think I'd be a better fit at UCI because of, my friends that are down there and I've had a chance to actually go visit. The transfer rate is incredibly, incredibly high. It's the same from community colleges or other colleges around the country. So there are opportunities if this doesn't present itself right away. There's so many different opportunities to get involved in the UC system down the road. So don't give up. There's so many different pathways to graduation. So make sure that you put your best foot forward, but also recognize there are opportunities that will open up to you in the future. But best of luck. And if we can be of any help, please reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. That dovetails really well onto my point, which is get help. You do not have to go through this process alone. I know it's so scary. Work with a coach or work with a mentor, work with a parent, work with friends. It helps so much to have that outside perspective. And I can say that with certainty, having seen tens of thousands of kids go through this process. Get outside help. if you wouldn't mind join me in thanking these coaches in the chat. They are here of their own volition. They're spending time tonight helping you guys navigate this process. Coaches, thank you so much for being here. That was such good insight and tips. I certainly wish I'd had it when I was applying. Thank you for the love in the chat. Thanks so much for being here, coaches. If you are ready to get started with one of these coaches or with any others, you can set up a strategy call with a member of our team. We have access to exclusive discounts and availability of these coaches and can pair you to the right one for your background and goals. So highly recommend hopping on a call if you want some help but aren't totally sure where to go. And feel free to reach out to any of them directly. We've dropped their profiles a couple of times in the chat. You can schedule a free intro call with any of them to discuss your background and your goals. We'd love to help you. But once again, thank you for being here on your Tuesday evening. Coaches as well, thanks for being here. It was such a fun event, guys. Thanks all.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you.